Hello there, this is Edwin McDonald, one of the assistants of the Chief Engineer Techs on board. I've been asked to train you on how to use dilithium control. Now I'm squeezing this in between wee hours of getting the ship shape, so if there's any errors, you'll have to forgive me. Now you're going to notice a few things here. One is when you start, you've only got the sphere here. You click on the sphere and then it's going to ask you several of these things. You'll need to click on Access Terminal and put in your name. There's mine. Don't you forget it. Then I click OK and I have access to the station's controls. So then I take my mouse. You see this thing that I'm waving around in front of your face. You go and drag it up to the top right corner, and that will give you access to this box here. You've got dilithium power and coolant control on this screen. First, let's click on dilithium power. Click, there we are, and that will take you to this screen here. Now this screen is in charge of regulating how much power we get out of the main reactor. And we get our power by mixing antimatter and matter. We take hydrogen atoms and we shoot them at this crystal here, and then we have antimatter particles that we also shoot at the crystal. And when they combine, the lattice work of dilithium ensures a 100% conversion rate of all of the dilithium and hydrogen, which it then creates an enormous amount of power. You really don't want to be standing next to this thing if it goes off uncontrolled. And then it takes that energy and it shoots it into our electrical currents over here. Now, there are several settings for this dilithium crystal, and each one is going to give you a different level of power available. Now, our current one, which is just normal, is producing 280 power. Now, this is not a fixed number, mind you. This thing will fluctuate throughout your mission, throughout the use of the ship, really. And if we're starting to get really bad efficiencies, we'll see this go down further and further, and then you're going to hear some yelling and screaming from down here, wondering what's going on. Now, the important thing is that we have to make sure that our power available matches the power in use. If we don't do that, well, bad things happen. For one thing, if we are using more power than we can't use more power than is available, frankly. But if we're not using all of it, then we've got what's called a feedback loop that just keeps heating things up. It's going to eventually melt things. You might be one of them eventually. So you don't want to do that. Now, if you need more power than 280, if for some crazy reason you just need way more power than that, you can control that by coming up to the dilithium crystal settings. You've got 4 of them. Like I said, one is normal. That's what you'll be doing most of the time. And don't be fiddling with this thing like crazy, or you'll also hear me yelling and screaming at you. You've got disengage, which frankly turns everything off. Now we're only using 25. This is all we've got because we're just running on battery power. We've got extreme. Extreme power is going to crank out quite a bit, you see, 350. And we've also got cool down, 140. When might you need these things? Well, in the event where you need lots of power, of course you need extreme. But if that's starting to heat things up, it's just way too much power pumping through our circuits, or something is overheating and you just want to back off, that's when a cool down might be good. And in the event where a warp core breach is about to happen, then that's when you'll probably want to disengage things. Now, let's see, where does the power go after we create it? So let's go back to normal, click on normal, and we see the 280. Now we've got 140. Uh-oh, there's a feedback loop in progress. We better fix that. Well, we can do that over here with power distribution. These branches go to left and right wing's power distribution. Left wing is something that you'll also be controlling from this side of the ship. It's in the computer station just next to you. The right wing is on the other side of the ship. These officers that regulate left and right wing, they are the ones that are actually putting the power into the warp engines, impulse engines, the weapons, shields, all those things. And where do they get the power? Right here from the screen. This number right here is all they've got to work with. So you need to make sure that you're giving them everything that you've got. For instance, right here, you've been skimping out on 140. Now we've got to get this back up to something that matches. A good rule of thumb is just to take the power available, divide it by 2, and increase that number over here until you reach it. So let's take this up to 140, and we'll do that on both sides. And you'll see something that happens when I try to go over 140 on this side. Up, up, up we go, up we go. There we have it, and I'm capped at 140. I can't use more than what I've got. That's just the the nature of things. Now, there are times when a dilithium crystal can break. Now, that's not a good time, of course. But in that event, you've got these spare crystals that you could plug in there if you need to. And that concludes this screen. If you have any questions, you want to stop and raise your hand for the bridge officer to come and clarify. But if not, then take your mouse, drag it up to the top right corner, as I told you before, and go to coolant control. Now, coolant control, well, you know, usually when you pump energy through things, they start to heat up, and the same thing with a starship. And we don't want them to get to melting temperatures, otherwise we're going to be taking a big swim in the big deep, if you know what I mean. So in order to do that, we use our coolant. The coolant is actually controlled by other officers, such as the warp engines controlled by Helm, and the impulse engines, they're cooled over there, and others throughout the ship. But where do they get their coolant from? That's you, right here. In fact, there's only two coolant tanks now that I see on your screen. You've got the impulse coolant tank, and you've got the warp coolant tank. When we use our warp engines and impulse engines, they heat up right quick. And in order to have coolant, first you got to fill them up. And that's as easy as just clicking fill reserve. And you'll see as you do that, as fill coolant. It's been a while since I've done this job. It's usually meant for grants. No offense. Well, you click fill coolant and up it goes until you're full. And then the helm officer on the right wing side of the ship can use it to cool down the impulse engines. And as he does it, you'll see that this bar is going to start going down. And you can fill this one as well. Now, have you noticed your big reservoir over here that's also dropping? As we fill the coolant, watch as it drops. Sure enough, slowly but surely it's falling. Now, this is all you've got. This is all the coolant you've got. So if you run out, well, you're going to have to call down the engineering and see if there's any reserves, or call a starbase, or go after another ship. I don't know. I don't recommend privateering or piracy or anything like that, of course. But now, let's say you need way more coolant in the impulse because you've been flying around in short distances a lot, and you're running out. But you've got lots in here. You can take some of the coolant back from this tank into the reservoir if you click fill reserve, and you see the big reservoir on the left is going up as I do that. And that's about as simple as it gets. And that's this screen. And that actually concludes this station's training video. You may now stop the tape and move on to another screen if you need to, or stop, raise your hand, and have the officer on the bridge come and take this from you.